So thank you everyone for coming today. My name is Brandon Grant. I am the Marketing Director here at QuoteWerks. And today we're going to be discussing some of the major features that we released in 2016 and kind of how they can be used. Throughout the year we do webinars with each new release, but a lot of times users can't make that specific webinar or even utilize some of the new features. A lot of companies update just once a year, so this is a good kind of summary of some of the major releases that are available and how they work and how you can utilize them in your system. So for today, we're just going to do a short PowerPoint presentation outlining some of the major features. As always, all of our updates are available on the website with a link and description of each feature. So that's a great place to go if you're looking for a specific feature or want some more information about a feature we discussed today. Definitely check out the website. We'll do a live demonstration of some of the new features and then take some questions at the end of the webinar. There are quite a few of you logged in today, so we'll try to answer as many as possible. If not, we will just follow up afterwards. We'll, either by email or phone if possible. So let's go ahead and get started then. So in 2016, we had over 125 new features, 78 fixes, and 39 miscellaneous features. The new features are going to range from specific industries to just general QuoteWerks features, and we're going to kind of go over those so that everyone that can use QuoteWerks, these wouldn't necessarily be specific to an injury or an industry, while some of them may be specific to an industry or part of the program. So first off, the integration updates. There's a lot of them, as you can see, since we do support quite a few of the CRM and PSA systems. But specifically, ConnectWise 2017.2 all the way back to 2016.6 are supported. So if you're on any of those versions of ConnectWise, the very latest version of QuoteWerks does have all of that support. Outlook 2016, a lot of you have updated to Outlook or have updated your Outlook or to Office 16. So that is supported in the latest version as well. Sugar CRM 7.7, MS CRM 8.1 and 8.0. Additionally, QuickBooks 2017 for the US and Canada, and also QuickBooks 2016 for the UK and Australia. Sage 50, US edition only, 2017, and Goldmine 2016.1 and Maximizer 14.1. So those are all supported in the very latest version of QuoteWerks. If you're not sure which version you're running, you can always check in your installation by clicking Help and then About. That'll show you what version of QuoteWerks you're running. Right now we are on version 5.2 build 2, so that's one I would recommend updating to today, and that's one I'm going to be demonstrating following along. So if you don't see some of the features that you see today, you're probably just not on the latest version of QuoteWerks. You'll also see there's a couple other integration notes. We do support SQL 2016, so if you're thinking about upgrading or being forced to upgrade, that won't be an issue. Again, you'll just want to be on the latest version of QuoteWerks for support for that. And then for any of the Salesforce users, Salesforce rolled out new security requirements for the integration. That was added back in June in QuoteWerks. So again, if you're on Salesforce and you haven't updated to the latest version, go ahead and do that, because eventually you're essentially on the older integration, which will no longer work until you upgrade to the latest version of QuoteWerks. So just something to keep in mind there. So we'll go ahead and we'll go through some of the new features. Specifically in Utilize, we added a lot. There's the new My Favorites folder, which allows users to attach or save previously searched for items. Very simple. You simply right-click on an item that you find in Utilize, and there will be an option that says Add to My Favorites. You'll see here, and we can even see here on our screen, that the Utilize has a expansion window where if you click on it, or expansion button, when you click on it, it will open up the My Favorites folder, and you can click on that and you'll see a list of your My Favorites. This is specific to each user in QuoteWerks, so each user can have their own favorites folder. Bundles and configuration support, something that we added that's been requested many times, was being able to create bundles and configurations from items in Utilize. So that is supported now. You can also pull items into your bundles and configurations from your My Favorites folder as well from Utilize. Paste Special support. This is another new feature that takes advantage of Utilize when you are using the Paste Special functionality in QuoteWerks, and you copy and paste that data from such as Excel, and it's coming into QuoteWerks, there's now a checkbox in the Pay Special wizard where you can choose to update that item with the utilized content. So if the item has a picture associated with it, marketing description, more customer-friendly descriptions, that information will be updated as it pulls into QuoteWerks. The one thing to mention about that feature is that you do have to have the vendor and vendor part number, or the manufacturer and manufacturer part number. So you need to have one pair of those two options. So again, either the vendor and vendor part number or the manufacturer and manufacturer part number to use the Pay Special Utilize functionality. And then the last one here, refresh item details. So you can see actually the screenshot here has a picture of it. For those of you with Utilize, you'll see this new icon when you're updated to the latest version of QuoteWerks. And what this does is this will actually update any selected items with utilized content. So as long as you, again, have the manufacturer and manufacturer part number, or the vendor and the vendor part number, when you click on that icon, that will actually update the selected items at one time with their product picture, customer-friendly description, marketing summary, and so on. It will not update the pricing. This is a little different than that Utilize panel button, where the Utilize panel button actually updates everything, including pricing. This will just update your content. So if you have negotiated pricing from the vendors, you can still get the items updated through Utilize, but you don't have to worry about it updating your pricing or your cost as well. So it's a nice feature where you can quickly update the items kind of as needed. One of the newer features that have been requested often as well that we added this year was more integration with our leasing enhancement with our leasing calculator. And what this does is it actually allows you to bundle any monthly recurring items on your document into a single amount that we send to the client now. For a lot of clients that have moved on to providing leasing options on their document, there wasn't a way before to have just the leasing option and the monthly options rolled into the same payment as actually two separate options that appeared on the document, so it's a little confusing. Now you'll see there is an option to, with this checkbox here, when you are calculating the lease payment, you can just include any monthly recurring charges into that lease payment, and that'll be part of the lease payment now moving forward. So it makes it really easy to kind of simplify the document for users and just show that client that one specific leasing amount on the document. There's a couple new macros available as well for the leasing integration. There's a new payment options macro that you can control how the payment options are displayed. So instead of it saying, it's credit card and this much, you can simplify it. So we'll kind of get into that a little bit today, but definitely check out the help file for that. And also we had a webinar not too long ago with Great America where we actually walked through that entire integration as well. So just keep that in mind, but the help file is great information for that. But those are kind of some of the new features of leasing integration. These are really nice because you don't actually have to set anything up for this. This feature is just there and available, and you can start using it. Licensing and security updates. So this is a big one. This is one that we have, again, heard a lot of requests for, and so now in QuoteWerks you can actually force users out of QuoteWerks and you can actually free up licensing. You'll see there's two options. There's the terminate running instance and revoke license allocation. The revoke license allocation is the one we typically recommend. Under the utilities menu in QuoteWerks, if you click on show logged in users, you'll actually see a list of logged in users. And then you'll have these two options to revoke the license or terminate the running instance. Revoke the license is the preferred method. This will free up a license from that selected user, and anyone else can now log in and utilize that license. Terminate running instance will actually kick the user out of QuoteWerks completely, so it'll actually close their installation. The only limitation about when you're kicking the user out of QuoteWerks is that if they had an open quote and they don't have autosave enabled, then any changes they made to that document would be lost. So that's why we recommend using the revoke license allocation, so you can just free up the license, and when that user comes back into QuoteWerks, they'll see that their license has been revoked, but they could still save their document and they won't lose any changes that they had made. So if you're going to start using this functionality, under the Tools My Preferences on the Miscellaneous tab in QuoteWerks, you can actually set up the autosave. That's something that we do recommend since this would allow you to essentially force users out of QuoteWerks. If you are going to terminate someone's instance, it will give them a 60-second window to log out of QuoteWerks to save their work before they are booted from the system. So again, we do recommend using the revoke license allocation so you can actually just free up a license for a user. This window, again, is available under the Utilities menu under Logged In or Show Logged In Users. Now, that's not incredibly helpful if all the licenses are being used and someone had gone home for maybe the weekend or vacation and you need to get in and free up their license. What you can do now is you can actually bring up the Logged In Users window when you're logging into QuoteWerks. Simply hold down the Shift button on your keyboard and you put in your username and password as you typically would and then hit OK. And this will display how many logged in users you have, and you can access this screen. Couple things to mention for this. You do have to have master rights in QuoteWerks in order to revoke someone's license or terminate their running instance. If you don't have master rights, but maybe you're like the sales manager and you need to be able to kick users out as needed, then there are security access rights that can be given to you where you can either revoke licenses or terminate running instances. So there's actually 2 security settings for each one. You'll just need to have the QuoteWerks administrator edit your user, go to that access tab in your user settings, and then apply those security settings. So again, it's a really nice feature to have, but we recommend typically, like I said, using the revoke license allocation option, so this option on the right-hand side, just to free up the license and only kicking out a user if you absolutely need to get everyone out of QuoteWerks or get them out of QuoteWerks for a specific reason. Because like I said, if they had anything open, they will lose that work if they didn't have autosave. And again, good point at this, just as a reminder, you can enable autosave for all the users under the Tools, My Preferences, Miscellaneous tab menu. You can enable an autosave so that if they have created the document and saved it, it'll just save any changes they made in the background. And that's just good, kind of work in general for QuoteWerks. So those are 2 of the major ones here for the license security. And again, for the sales managers, we do have those access rights that can be provided to give you that access. Management report exporting. So we've added some new functionality to the management reports. The biggest one is being able to actually export these reports to like a CSV file or a tab delimited file. So that you can get them into Excel and run sorting or pivot tables or any other information you need to. Just getting that information into Excel makes things a lot easier. We do still have the ability to create them as PDFs as before, but now we just kind of expanded upon that functionality, so it makes it really easy to get the data from QuoteWerks into another system like Excel. So we'll kind of demonstrate that today. It's going to be pretty straightforward, but I'll make sure I show you how it works. Couple other options that are going to be available is you can actually select the fields now when we're exporting to Excel or to a CSV file rather. So you can actually choose which fields are going to be exported. So if you have a report that shows maybe 20 fields but you only need 10 of them exported, you can actually select which 10 are exported. For those fields that are exported, you can actually choose how QuoteWerks is going to sort them. So if you wanted to sort from from the grand total from largest to smallest or smallest to largest, you can do that. If you want to sort it by date, you can do that as well. So there's actually some settings that you can apply, and these can be saved on the document as well. Okay, line numbering. So this is a really quick and easy feature that can be added. What this allows you to do is actually have line numbers on the Document Items tab in QuoteWerks, and then these can also be shown to your customers on the layouts that are sent, so the output of the documents. Under the View Customized Columns window, you'll actually see 2 at the very bottom. One's called Line Number, the other is called Line Number Actual. These can be shown on the Document Items tab. This one will make a lot more sense once I actually show you, but it just provides a way to have numbering on your line items, very similar to how Excel has line numbers on there. We now have it on ours, so I'll show you how to do that. A very simple feature to start using. It's not going to be shown by default, so it is something that you would need to turn on, but this is going to be under View Customized Columns. Highlighting line items. This is also a nice feature on the Document Items tab that provides an easy way to kind of call out specific line items on a document, specifically for the users who interact with other users. Maybe you collaborate on a lot of documents. You need a way to have another user take a look at a specific line item. Maybe if you're using the approval settings, you want to highlight the line item in question. If you're going to give a client a special deal, but it doesn't fit with your approval settings, so you're going to go ahead and highlight it for the approver so they can see the item in question. There's a lot of different options or different ways that you can use these highlighting options. You can see it has up to 5 different colors. And then the best part about it is internal view only, so you don't have to worry about the client ever seeing these. So if you highlight line items and you don't take them off and you go to deliver the document to the client, you don't have to worry about the client seeing these. These are for only internal view. It's just so you can kind of call out these specific line items, especially if you have 50, 100, 200 line items on the document, and you need to kind of remember which line item you're working on or something that needs your attention. You can go through and mark these as needed. You'll see the icon is on your grid toolbar in QuoteWerks. So next to the totals for all items box, you'll see it, the option here, and just click on the drop down and you can select from the various highlights. Dell Punch-Out. So we added Dell Punch-Out actually previous to last year, but we added some enhancements to it to make it a little easier. One of them being when you import these order requisitions from Dell, you now have the ability to place orders through QuoteWerks for Dell. So anytime you're using the punch-out credentials and you're importing those order requisitions from Dell, you can even place the electronic orders now. Additionally, you can also use credit cards for Dell orders now. So before you actually had to set up terms with Dell, now you can actually use a credit card and you'll just enter in your credit card details in there. So again, just another kind of addition to that specific feature. If you aren't using the Dell Punch-Out and you're interested, just let me know and we can send you the email that you need to contact, because you do need specific credentials for QuoteWerks in order to use this integration. All right, Tech Data Quote Window. So this is a nice little feature that will appear on your grid toolbar as well. So if you look near that totals for all items box and you see the little Tech Data icon, if you click on that drop down and you select Import SAP Quote, when you click on that, that will actually open up this Tech Data SAP Quote window. This will show you a list of any quotes that have been created over the last 45 days. And when you highlight one of the quotes, like I have in the image here, and you click on import, that will actually bring that specific document into QuoteWerks. So you can actually import those tech data quotes directly into QuoteWerks. So anytime a tech data rep has created a document for you within the last 45 days, you can actually go directly from QuoteWerks, go to that import window and pull those quotes in. So you don't have to worry about using the Pay Special, retrieving the quote from your sales rep or waiting on an email or anything like that. If you know they've created for you, you can go right to that that import window and pull those quotes in. All right, so those are kind of some of the major features. Like I said, we had released over 125 new features this year. So if you take a look at our support page where our updates are, you can see a full list of all the features that we released. There's a search functionality, so if you're looking for something specific, you can do a search in there, or you can just kind of browse through all the features that we released. As always, we have a ton of resources available to you, so if you do have questions or need assistance, feel free to give us a call, send us an email. We're always happy to help. We do have a ton of videos online, so if you're looking for some training options that you can do on your own time, there's a ton of videos on the website that you can utilize to kind of help you with specific features in the system. Same thing with the webinars. We record all the webinars, so every time we release new features or have like a third party that's a new integration, we post them on the website as well. So it's a great place for information also. Obviously the help file, that's our online user's manual. So if you do have questions about QuoteWerks and you want to explore the help file, that's a great place to find information. That's kept up to date. I think the latest one has been uploaded, so if you're on the latest version of QuoteWerks, it's also on the website as well. And then the forum. Forum's a great place to go for additional questions. So if you want to interact with other QuoteWerks users, you can actually access the users forum as well. That's available through the website also. And then partners, if you're looking for someone to kind of help you on site or just someone a little more local to where you're located, definitely check out our partners page. You can see a list of them available. If you're not sure about who's in your area, just feel free to give us a call or send us an email, and we can put you in contact with partners that that might be a little closer to where you are. We are going to be continuing with our quote workshops this year, so some trainings across the country. The next one, we just completed one in Los Angeles last week, and we'll actually be doing another one in Chicago in April. So if you're interested in signing up for those training classes, definitely let us know. we're at the ASCII event, so if you see our booth, definitely stop by to ask us any questions, or if you just kind of want to see what's new, it's a great place to do that. And there'll be a few other events that we'll be attending throughout this year as well. Obviously, social media is a great place for information, so new features, kind of what's going on with QuoteWerks, Facebook, Twitter, it's always a great place to check out. We post all our videos in YouTube, so if you do ever have any kind of issues getting the videos to play, you can just go straight to YouTube as well. All our videos will be available through there. And then again, LinkedIn, great place to interact with other QuoteWerks users. We do have a LinkedIn group that you can join so you can share information with other QuoteWerks users. All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll continue now with our demonstration of QuoteWerks. So we're going to first go through the licensing and security enhancements because this kind of applies to everyone. So the first thing I wanted to show you is where this is actually available. So this is going to be under the Utilities menu, and then Show Logged In Users. So we'll go ahead and we'll click on that, and that'll bring up the Logged In Users window. Now I'm the only one logged in to this machine, so I'm the only one that it's going to appear in this list. But if I had another user, I could actually select them, and then here are my two options to revoke their license or terminate that running instance. So like I said, revoking the license is simply going to remove the license from that user, but it won't close them out of QuoteWerks. So if I had a document that I was working on that was still open in my system, I would still be able to, the next time I open my machine and look at my QuoteWerks, I'll actually be able to save my work and not lose anything. Again, that's pretty important, because if I had been working on something, I had to leave the office suddenly and I forgot to close out of QuoteWerks, I wouldn't lose any data or anything that I had been working on. If you need to kick a user out, you need to close their installation, you need to get them completely out of QuoteWerks, then that's when you will use Terminate Running Instance. Like I said, it's just something you need to be aware of, that if you use this functionality, you run the risk of losing any of the data that the user was currently had open. Maybe they don't have any quotes open, you're just kicking them out, and that's fine. But if they do have any quotes open, if they don't have autosave enabled, it's going to close out that document, and essentially you'll more than likely lose that particular document. So that's why we always recommend revoke license allocation. Use that functionality when that's available and when that's okay to use. Additionally, like I said, also there is the ability to view this logged in users window when you're actually logging into QuoteWerks. So if you need the ability to access this and free up a license when you're logging into QuoteWerks, that's done on the login screen. So if I go into QuoteWerks here and we say we'll log in just like you typically would, so you'd have your username set and your password, you just need to hold Shift on your keyboard and click OK, and that'll show you the logged in users. For this installation, there's no one logged in. I'm about to log in, so that's why I'm set as pre-login, but there's no one else logged in. But if you tried to log in, it told you that someone else was logged in still, you could see a list of that here. Again, you do have to have the security settings enabled for this, so you have to have either master rights in QuoteWerks or have those access security settings set. So if we log back in here, let me just recenter my program here. So if we need to apply those settings where the user has access but they're not a master user, to be able to kick users out or revoke their licenses, it's going to be done under the Utilities menu, User Maintenance, and then we'll just select our user for purposes. So we'll click Edit, click on our Access tab, and using our Spotlight search here, I'm just going to type in the word revoke, and I'm going to scroll down, and you'll see in bold, once I get there, is going to be that access right. So wait for everyone to catch up here. So you'll see our access right for non-master rights user can revoke other license allocation. So if you are a non-master rights and non-admin user in QuoteWerks and you have this setting set, this will allow you to revoke licenses for other users. So typically, like a sales manager, someone who maybe manages QuoteWerks for the sales team but doesn't have access to the admin functionality in QuoteWerks, this would be a great access right to provide to them. And then you'll see right below it, even though it is grayed out, you can see it. It says non-master rights user can terminate other running instances. So you can actually choose if you want to provide the user with both options where they can terminate running instances and revoke licenses, or just one or the other. And again, these settings are available here. So again, that's just going to be under the access rights for the specific user. If you're an admin user in QuoteWerks, you don't have to worry about setting these. You already have access to them. You don't need to give yourself access to that functionality. So that's the new licensing and security enhancements. One thing to note, just to kind of build off that, before you start using that functionality in QuoteWerks, it might be a good idea to have users set for autosave. The autosave is available under the Tools menu, My Preferences, so it's a specific user preference, and then click on the Miscellaneous tab. So Tools, My Preferences, click on the Miscellaneous tab, and you'll see there is an Enable Autosave option, so you'll just want that checked. For a lot of you, it may already be checked, and that's great, but for some of you, you may have turned it off. So if you're going to use that kind of functionality where you have the option to kick other users out, or you're going to be kicking users out because that happens in a regular basis, you're going to want to make sure that's set so that they don't lose any changes or any save, anything that they've done on their documents. All right, so let's go ahead and export the management reports. We're going to go over that functionality. So under our reports in QuoteWerks, we only have one option, that's management reports. And I already have a report highlighted that we're going to demonstrate today. So typically, before we added the new functionality to export your reports out of QuoteWerks to CSV, the only way you could do it was to create a PDF, and you can kind of do it using like tab delimited, but it didn't work so great. So we rewrote the entire thing, make it much smoother, much easier to use when you're doing that. So the first thing that you would do is you would edit a report that you want to now be able to export to a CSV file. So we'll click on Edit. We'll then go to the Output tab. So as usual, you'll have your three tabs, your General, your Filter, and your Output. So the Output's always the default. So by default, when you edit a layout, you would typically have just a report layout option, and you would have your report layout available. Well, with QuoteWerks, you now have the option to use the file export. So this is if you want to export this particular report to a CSV or tab delimited file. So I'm going to go ahead and click on File Export. And then since I've done this one before, it actually had saved my settings. So I just chose a few columns that I wanted to export. As you can see, there are a ton of fields that you can use. I think most of the fields that are in the document items and document headers tables are available. I think all of those are there. I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure most of them are there. So if you're using them in a report, they're probably in this field section here. So we have two options. We have the file export, so which fields we want to include, and then which fields we want to sort by. So I'll explain what those differences are here. So the fields to include, these are going to be the fields that we export. So anything that I have that has a checkbox next to it is a field that I want to export. You can reorder them by using the up and down arrows here, or you can move a field to the top. So right now, as it stands, the document name would be exported first, followed by the status, the number, the date, and then the grand total of the document. So that's pretty good for this one's orders. That's what I want. On the right-hand side, you have fields if you want to sort by them. So in this case, I want to sort from the grand total from A to Z, which is basically largest to smallest. So very similar to how Excel, when you select a column and you click on A to Z or Z to A, this is what it's doing, is it's filtering by essentially largest to smallest, smallest to largest, or if you are doing it alphabetically, from A to Z or Z to A. You'll see each field actually has those two options. So for our example here, just this deposit amount has from A to Z or from Z to A, so from smallest to largest, from largest to smallest. So you'll have both options. So in this case, this grand total, when it's exported, since it's included, it will actually be sorted from smallest to largest. So that's the only one I want to sort. I don't really care about the other ones. If you wanted to sort the other columns, you could do that as well. This will be the first one that's sorted, though, is going to be the grand total. That's the one that really matters to me. This probably doesn't have as much bearing as these fields, since once you're exporting to a CSV file, you can actually sort it as needed in that document, so since it'll be in Excel. Below that, you'll have your export format. You have two options. You have tab delimited and comma delimited. This is obviously the most common CSV because it comes into Excel very cleanly. into the various columns. So that's the one I always recommend, but if you want to use tab delimited, that's available. Output file, you can actually set a predetermined or a saved output file so that when you export this from the main report screen, you can actually just save over that file each time. So instead of having to start from here and name it, you can just kind of save over the same file each time. You don't have to. It'll prompt you and ask you, and this will be the default, but if you want to save over it each time, you can. And then you'll see here there is an option to prompt to select output file. And then also if you want to export the field names, so basically if you want the column names to be exported as well, then you just need to check that box. So we'll go ahead and we'll just save this first. Let me go ahead and save it. And then if I wanted to export it, I can click on Save, Close, and Export. Now, each time you're going to use this file or this particular report, you'll see in our reports window now, when I select it, I only have one option. I can't print, preview, output to CSV, or save as PDF. I'm going to just straight up export it from here. The reason that this is a little different than with these options is because you're choosing to export the already previously selected columns and sorting options, everything that you selected in that file export. That's why you only have this option. If you select one of the other reports that's still using the Layout Designer in QuoteWerks, then you'll see you have the option to print, preview, output to CSV, and save as PDF. The main difference between outputting the CSV here and doing this one is going to use the files or the fields from the already preset layout. So you wouldn't be able to, you're not essentially customizing it, where this one you're actually customizing the output of it. So if I click on export, this will prompt me to save my file. So in this case, it's going to save it as a CSV. We'll go ahead and we'll save it. I'm just going to go save over it, and then we'll set my dates. So we'll do December 1st, okay, and then my end date, we'll do December 31st. So we'll actually do last month rather than this month since I don't have any. And then I can view the file, and then you can see here it's exported to CSV, and it'll give you the option to open it up, and then we can see our document name, the doc status, the document number, the doc date, the grand total, all that information. So, and again, opens it up in Excel for you so you can make any changes, you can sort it, you can run whatever kind of reports in Excel you need to out of it. You'll have all that data in there. So it just makes it really easy to get that data from QuoteWerks into Excel now. There is a section in the help file about this functionality, so if you do have some more questions about exporting through CSV, that is available in the help file now. Okay, so let's move on to line numbering. So you'll see here on my document item screen, over to the left, I actually have two columns that are in blue. So typically they're going to be in white, which means that they're columns that you can change. Instead, mine are in blue, which means I can't change them. That's because these line items are going to be numbered. So you see, as I hit down on my keyboard, it actually shows 1, 2, 3. Or if I was to insert like a heading line, then it renumbers them. Or if I insert a comment line, again, I start to get renumbered. So what you'll see here is these two columns providing two different sets of information. So the first one is the line number, which is just numbering every single line item on the document. In this case, it doesn't care if it's a heading line, comment line, product or service, subtotal, whatever type of line is on the document. It doesn't care, it's going to provide a line number next to it. The other line number is going to provide only a line number if it's a product or service. So if it's a comment line, if it's a heading line, if it's subtotal, running subtotal, whatever it is, it's not going to have a line number associated with it. You can use one, you can use both, you can use a combination of the two. It doesn't matter. It's just kind of what your preference is. So to turn on the line numbering feature in QuoteWerks, that's going to be under View, and then Customize Columns. And then you can see here mine are at the very top already, but if yours aren't, they're probably going to be all the way down at the bottom. So you'll need to scroll all the way down. And then if you want to move them, you can drag and drop them or use the move up and down buttons to reorder them. Again, the line number actual, the difference between this and the line number is the line number actual will print a line number for each line item on the document. It doesn't matter if it's a heading, comment, or product or service, where line number is only going to print the line number next to it if it is a product or service. Now, that actually gives you some flexibility. You can actually tell QuoteWerks if you wanted to include a line number or not with this column. So this line number column, the line number one, actually provides that flexibility. You're going to make those decisions under the Tools Options menu, and then click on the Print tab. So under the Print tab and Tools Options menu, you'll see there's actually a line numbering option, and it says don't number for heading lines, comments, basically any other type of line items that aren't products or services. So this is going to be most useful on the output for the client, and we're showing the same thing here, where if I did want a number for heading lines, I would go ahead and leave this unchecked, and then my heading lines would have a line number. So if you want to kind of simplify your documents for the client and not show them line numbers for items that are headings and comments, you can apply these settings and just have it for the products and services. So if they see a quote and they see it has 10 line items on it, they'll actually see which line items which. And if they ask questions about it or anything like that, you'll actually see that information. So the line numbering here, again, this is going to also affect the option that you have set here is going to affect not only what you have on this document item screen for this field, but also when you are customizing your layout on the document. If you don't want the client to see line numbers for like heading lines and comment lines and things like that, then you'll want to use this field. If you don't care, if you just want every single line item, whether it's a heading or comment or anything, to have a number associated with it, then you will actually use that line number actual field instead. Okay. To kind of stay with that, stay in that realm with the line items here, we're going to move on to highlighting the line items. So in QuoteWerks, we kind of talked about this on the during the PowerPoint, is being able to provide highlighting for the different various line items on the document. So the way we highlight line items, very simple. Going to highlight a line item here. So we're going to select it, and then you just select your highlighter. So let's do red for this one. When I click out of there, you'll see that it has now been highlighted red. So this makes it really easy to go through, kind of mark items maybe that need your attention or someone else's attention on any document. You can even highlight multiple items at once. So if I want to highlight these last two items as, let's say, green, then they'll be highlighted as green. If you want to change them into different colors, you can just hit the icon, and that'll default it to highlighting in yellow. So it makes it really easy to go through and mark any of these items that might need attention or something that maybe needs to be adjusted without having to put notes in there or reminders or anything like that. You can just use the highlighting. So really useful feature. Again, this is something that's not going to show up for the client on the output. It's just going to be internal. So it's really useful, like I said, specifically for approvals. If you're using the approval settings in QuoteWerks and you want to just highlight which line needs attention or which lines need attention for the approver so that they can quickly see what needs to be adjusted and why you're doing that the way it is, you can mark those lines that way. Once you're done, if you want to remove the highlighting, you can absolutely do that just by selecting the line items and then setting the highlighting to none. If you want to leave the highlighting on there, again, that's fine because it isn't going to show up on the document for the client. It's going to be for internal views only. Okay, so we'll continue on. There is more information about the help file for that, but as you can see, it's a pretty straightforward feature, and there is no setup involved for it, so you can start using it right away if you wanted to. All right, so let's go ahead and go into the utilize functionality. I'm just going to remove some of these items here. So in our product lookup window, we do have our utilize option, and then you'll see you do have a My Favorites folder. So when you are searching for an item in utilize, and let's just go ahead and find an item. And once our option has returned, we'll get our pricing and availability. And then once you've selected an item, if you want to save this to be used later as your My Favorites, you can see just right-click on that item and scroll down to Add Utilize Product to My Favorites. So I'll go ahead and I'll click on My Favorites. And then if I click on my Favorites folder, I'll actually see a list of any items that I've previously added. If we go to the ones that we just added here, you'll see it just shows up here. So that item's been added to My Favorites. So anytime I want to quote this item, instead of having to do a search and utilize for it, I can just come to my favorites and I can see a full list of these. If you stop quoting or selling a particular line item or item that's in this My Favorites folder, you can easily remove it. Simply right-click on it and choose Remove Utilized Product from My Favorites. And that'll remove it from the Utilize My Favorites window. Now, any item on the Utilize My Favorites, this is user-based, so this is specific to your user in QuoteWerks. So you can create your own list of My Favorites in here, and you don't have to worry about seeing anybody else's or anything like that. You'll just see just your list in the Utilize Favorites. Again, for the users who have Utilize, there's nothing to add. There's nothing that you need to do. It'll just appear once you've updated QuoteWerks, and you see that information here. By default, the first time you see it, the first time you log in, you might just see the little expansion option. So you just need to click on the little plus sign to open up the My Favorites folder. So that's one of the first things that we added to Utilize this year. One of the other options was support in bundles and configurations for Utilize items. So if I click on bundle here, and let's go ahead and let's just go edit an existing bundle. And I want to add an item from Utilize. All I need to do is click Add, just like you typically would for your bundles. And then go to your Utilize window, search for the item you want to add in. And once you've found your item, this is going to be a little different. You'll actually want to get your pricing and availability because you're going to choose kind of the primary vendor for this item. So when you're going to be using bundles or Utilize items for bundles and configurations, you want to make sure you set the vendor before you add the item to the document. The reason is because if you don't, in this case, if I don't set it as tech data, even though I have my best costs through there, by default, QuoteWerks will automatically set the vendor to the first vendor that you have credentials for. So in this case, it would be Synex. So they don't even have the item in stock. It's more expensive. So I want to set tech data as kind of like the default for now. You can always update it. You can always check pricing availability once the item's on the document using the Utilize panel. But for best practices, we always recommend selecting the vendor first. So I have tech data selected, and then I can choose Select Add, and it'll add it in there. So there's my item. And then if I scroll to the right, you'll actually see the source is Utilize and the vendor is tech data, so the vendor is selected. This option here, I actually left blank just to show the example, and since DNH is the first one that I'd set up in my installation, it's the one that's going to be available, and that's the one that it's going to pull from by default. So just keep that in mind. If you're going to build bundles and configurations using items from Utilize, you want to pull the vendor in too. Additionally, if you do want to pull items from your My Favorites, you can do that also. So if you're using the Utilize My Favorites and you have a list of the My Favorites and you want to add them to a bundle, you can easily do that from here also. So we'll go ahead and we'll select one. And again, get our pricing availability before we pull it in. And there it is in there. So very simple, very easy to use. And again, same thing as if you had pulled the items from a different vendor. If you want to remove them from this particular bundle, you just click Remove, and it'll remove that item from this bundle. Doesn't delete the item, doesn't remove it from your My Favorites if you had added it from Utilize, just removing it from your bundle here. Configurations are going to work the exact same way, where you can just go through while you're adding the items, setting up those containers in the configurator. You can pull them from Utilize or from My Favorites also. All right. Then the last thing I wanted to mention for the item, let's go ahead and just pull an item from. Actually, let me just go. Let's pull an item from one of our databases here. So perhaps you have an item that you pull in to your document, and you want to update it. Maybe you pulled in from Pay Special, or you got it from the vendors, and you want to update the item to include the product picture, more customer-friendly description, things like that. As long as you have the manufacturer part number and the manufacturer, or the vendor part number and the vendor, you can absolutely use this next functionality, which is going to be the refresh item with Utilize details icon. So if I click on that, that'll actually go out to Utilize and update it with a new description. I don't know if you saw that. It was very quick. I'll go ahead and I'll reset it just so you can see. But it'll use the more customer-friendly description. If there's a picture associated with this item, it'll now include one if there wasn't one before. If the picture's changed, it'll update it, so it'll actually update and include that information. It'll also add the marketing summary on there if it wasn't included as well. So if I come in here and let's just say I change that description, so I just very simply removed a lot of the text from the description, and I want to reset it, I can just click on the refresh item with utilize details information, and it'll reload that content information for me. So it's a real easy way to do that. You can do this with multiple items. If I had 5, 6, 10, 30 items on the document, just select the ones that you want to update and click on that. Again, with this functionality, you will need the manufacturer and manufacturer part number or vendor and vendor part number in order to do it. That's the only way Utilize will allow for lookups if you have 2 of those fields filled out on the document for those items. All right. Okay, so I think that's most of it from the Utilize side of things. Last thing I wanted to mention on our document items tab is actually changing tabs, but it's going to affect what shows up on our document items, is on the sale info tab when you're using the lease payment options. So before we talked about being able to bundle, before you just had these one items, and then if you had any monthly items, you couldn't actually include them in the same total. So if I go back to my database here, and let's go ahead and select an item. We'll select this item, and we're going to go ahead and just convert it to monthly for our example. All right. So we have this monthly item on our document, and then we go to the Sale Info tab. You'll now see it actually shows you what the monthly recurring amount is. Well, if you want this to be bundled into that lease payment option, all you have to do is there's a new checkbox when you choose Add Lease Payment Options. I'm just going to move this to the right so you can see it a little easier. And you'll see there's now a checkbox to include the monthly recurring to the lease payment. Now, you don't have to. That's why we gave you the checkbox, because sometimes you might want to say, you know, here's going to be your initial investment or the one-time items, and here's how much the lease is going to be, and then here's going to be your ongoing recurring costs monthly. Perhaps they're going to be billed separately, so you want to leave them separate. That's fine. So you'll still have that option. But if you want to bundle them into that single payment now, you have that option, and you just need to check this box. And then once you check that box, you just need to process and get your lease payment options. And then we can choose to add these lease options into the document. You'll also see that the monthly option is now including, in this case, the $810 per month. So it's actually including that payment amount each month into the document itself. So you don't have to worry about, again, having those 2 different options. You can just have them rolled into a single payment. So it's easy enough change to make. And then if you wanted to decide not to do that, just refresh the lease payment options, and you can choose to have that. And then you can see it'll actually tell you, it'll say not included, not including monthly recurring. So this is actually not going to include that monthly recurring amount with that option deselected. So again, just a nice little feature that you can use. There's no setup involved in it. It's just turned on, and you can choose to use it kind of as you move forward. QuoteWerks will remember your previous setting. So if you do set this, moving forward by default, this particular option will always be set until you uncheck it. So it's kind of one of the things that once you do it the first time, you don't have to remember to do it each time. It'll automatically be included moving forward. All right, and then the last couple items wanted to cover before we get into some questions. One of the things is for the ConnectWise users, recurring items. So we actually do support monthly recurring items in QuoteWerks. Well, we technically always supported that, but ConnectWise has added the ability to actually have those monthly recurring items set up in QuoteWerks, so that when we set them up in QuoteWerks and we send them over to ConnectWise, they'll actually come over as products instead of you having to send them over as services. So what you will have to do is you'll need to go into your ConnectWise setup in QuoteWerks, and then if you're updated to the very latest version, you'll see there is a new tab. It's called the REST API. And if you click on that, you'll see there's an option that says Enable the ConnectWise REST API. You do have to be on ConnectWise 2016.3 and higher. For most of you, that probably won't be an issue, especially if you're on the web for ConnectWise the hosted, because it's going to be updated automatically for you. But for those of you that are on premise, and there are quite a few of you, you need to upgrade to ConnectWise 2016.3 and higher to use this API call. But this will basically allow you to send recurring products into ConnectWise, so they can do services. So we can do products and services in QuoteWerks, and then ConnectWise added the ability to do recurring products as well, and they support that in their API now. So if you want to turn that on, it's pretty simple. You'll see we actually have the instructions on the REST API page. You don't need to do this for each user. It's just do it once in the installation, and that'll apply to every user. Very important, though, this private key information here that's given to you, it only shows up the first time that you set up that, that key. So just make sure that when you do create this, that you do copy that in maybe like a notepad or a Word document or a passwords file somewhere, and you keep that handy just in case, because otherwise you'll have to go through these steps again. I don't think there's any issues with creating it multiple times that I'm aware of. I tested a bunch and didn't have any issues, but just keep that in mind. Best practice is just go ahead and create it once, save that information in like a password file somewhere, wherever you save your passwords, and just so you have it available. And then you'll see there's an option to, this one will already be defaulted. There's also going to be the option to push the customer PO number to the ConnectWise opportunity. So we've had that request quite a bit as well. Again, this is only available on this REST API, so you need to be on ConnectWise 2016.3 and higher, and QuoteWerks version 5.2. So basically the latest version of QuoteWerks will have this functionality. All right, and the last thing we wanted to mention before we take questions is going to be the tech data quoting functionality. So if you look here, we have on our grid toolbar our tech data, retrieve tech data SAP quote option. So the first option is if tech data ever sends you an Excel quote, you can just easily import that into QuoteWerks. But what we changed this year was the ability to retrieve the tech data SAP quotes directly from tech data, and it'll actually bring up a new window. So if I click on this, it's going to show me a list of any quotes that have been created within the last 45 days. So for my example, I don't have any quotes that have been created in the last 45 days from tech data, but if I did, you would actually see a list of them, and when you highlight them, you'll see the items, and you can simply click on import, and it'll import that particular quote into QuoteWerks with those items. So it can save a lot of time, so you don't have to worry about doing a copy and paste to the paste special or just manually importing them into QuoteWerks. Now you can use this functionality to easily pull tech data quotes directly from QuoteWerks or directly from tech data into QuoteWerks. Once the quote has been pulled into QuoteWerks, it's going to look exactly like you had started in QuoteWorks. So it'll look exactly like this with the line item information, and then from there you can make any changes that you need to. If you needed to adjust the item's description, mark up the price any at all. If you want to update it with the utilized content, you can do that as well. So you're going to have a lot of flexibility in making those changes. So those are some of the major additions that we added in the last year. A couple other minor ones that I'll go through just very quickly. Something that had actually been requested a few times and we added in is on the search window. So if you click on the open document window here in QuoteWerks, we added a new QuoteValet document field. This field is extremely useful if you're not sure if a document has actually been uploaded to QuoteValet or not without opening the document. So there was no kind of visual indicator if the document had been uploaded to QuoteValet. Now you can see here if the QuoteValet document field has something in there, that means it has been uploaded to QuoteValet. If it's blank, that means that document hasn't been. So it makes it very easy. If you got distracted while you were working on a document and you closed out of it and you can't remember if you had uploaded it, or maybe a week's gone by and you're looking at that document, you're not sure if you actually uploaded it and sent it to the client, you can quickly see if it was in fact uploaded to QuoteValet. So just a nice little shortcut there. Additionally, we added some new options for the document name, document number, status, company contact, to select if the field begins with, contains, or ends with, so you can kind of do like keyword search, or if you know the beginning of a part of it, you can search that way. So just to kind of make it a little simpler to find your particular documents in QuoteWerks in this search window. All right, so that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. I do want to thank everyone for your time. I see there's quite a few questions, so I'm going to go through a lot of those. Like I said, we will be posting this webinar on our website either later this week or early next week, and we'll send out an email blast when it is available. So If anyone from your team had to leave early or you came in late and you missed part of it, don't worry, we will post it up there. For those of you that did post questions, feel free to stick around. I'll be able to answer questions for the next few minutes. If I don't answer your question directly, don't worry, we will have some of our account managers follow up with you and make sure that we get all of your questions answered. So again, thank you for your time today, and everyone have a great day.